Welcome, everyone. My name's Rob Beliveau, and you're here with the All Aboard podcast with Rob Beliveau. Today, I'm super excited to have one of NeonTrain's learning providers, or clients as commonly known, Amanda Rogers from iPlume Writing, Inc. Welcome, Amanda.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's
wonderful to be here.
It's been a journey to get here. I was thinking, prepping for this today, that it was a year and a half ago that you and I were on a course together.
Oh, that's right.
Right.
Yeah.
That was an AI course, and we were sitting together. We didn't know each other, but then we started chatting, and it turned out we did know each other a little bit. Remember that? Yes.
That's how we met, and that's how we got the ball rolling.
And you have connections to the online learning world.
I do. My husband works at NSCC in online learning.
Right, and that was the catalyst for our discussion to talk about online learning. And then you're like, "Well, Rob, what do you do?" And I'm like, "Well, I do online learning, but for small medium business." And then right away, I remember you kind of perked up and you were just like, oh, I've been thinking about this idea. So tell us a little bit about you. Who is Amanda Rogers and what do you do? And what does iPlume do?
Well, iPlume is a full service writing and training company now. We specialize in grant writing, funding strategy, and proposal development for nonprofits and businesses across Canada.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So actually, just in the past 5 years, we've secured almost $50 million for our clients.
Wow, $50 million. And I'm sure that tally keeps going up. And I noticed that in this intro, you said that you're a company that works on grant writing. And now then you added on training, right? And
right.
I don't remember hearing that from you before.
You're right.
Okay.
I haven't. It is now an integral part of what we do.
Really?
And it all started with NeonTrain.
So let's walk that back a bit to, you have this company, you're doing this successfully without NeonTrain, without online learning. And there was this catalyst or this spark that said, it's time. It's time to do something online, progressive, more blended, that approach that many organizations and companies do to give you capacity to scale where you can't scale as a singular human. What was that catalyst for you that said it was time?
It's interesting that you bring up that we met at an AI learning session because AI and the onset of ChatGPT was the catalyst for me to put this out here in a step-by-step training. I found that fewer clients were coming to us to write their grants. And what had happened, what is happening is more people are writing their own grants using ChatGPT and AI. And what's happening is the reviewers and funders that are receiving all of these applications to an already overly subscribed program, they're now receiving tenfold the applications, and they all seem to be following the same formula.
Yep.
And they're very generic. And what that causes is more noise for the reviewers to sift through. So I thought, well, if they're going to write their own grants, then let me create a step-by-step program to help them with the entire process and their entire funding strategy.
To be able to stand out on top of the ones that are now being generically created using AI.
Right. Because grant writing has very little to do with good writing.
Phew. Good. That's good to know, because when I need to write a grant, I'll need your help. But tell me more about that.
Well, it has to do more with fit, alignment, shared objectives. So there's so much more to writing a grant than writing it. If you want to use AI, then that's great. We have a module on that, but that's a module towards the end because
it's more supportive.
Yes, it's more supportive because you need to understand the foundations first, from sourcing to submission.
It's really interesting that this AI we've talked about on the show many times over the last couple of years. And when we see researchers and academics talking about, will AI replace jobs? Will AI replace industries? Many folks that are certainly more specialized in this area than I am have always been saying, it will not replace you if you find a way to use it to exponentialize what you do and provide extra value. And it sounds like you're tapping into that of saying you're not fearful of AI disrupting what you do. You're seeing what AI is doing and you're seizing an opportunity to maximize that and then provide even more value on top of that with that human touch.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And the thing about our training, it's extremely practical and step-by-step in the way that they're actually building a live grant alongside the training using over a dozen tools and resources that I use when I work with my clients.
So that would also start to lend into probably a bit more of the credibility too, that I'm sure when people are writing grants looking for funding, that might not be it on the journey that you submit. You might have questions that get asked of you or you have to come back with supplementals. If AI and ChatGPT have done all the work for you, you don't actually know necessarily what those answers are. And that could actually expose you even more, couldn't it?
Yeah. And what a lot of people, we don't have nonprofits and businesses, small businesses, we don't have time to write grants on top of everything else we're doing. So what people are doing is, quickly spitting it out and applying for as many things as possible and hoping something sticks. But that's not how it works.
Yeah.
It really is about drilling down that strategy and having that funding plan in advance so that this training will take you through all of that. And then in the end, you have a grant, a final grant that I personally review and provide feedback on before they submit it to the funder. Now they have the capacity, the knowledge, the tools to do it themselves, and they have a grant to submit.
And it's authentic and it's genuine and it's been vetted. So it's vetted by iPlume, checkmarked by Amanda. Really good segue into the course and some of the training elements that you've built and designed. And, you had the it's time moment that, you wanted to do something with your company more, expand it, help provide more reach, get more clients and help more people in that small, medium business, which as listeners may know, NeonTrain is built around helping small, medium business get on online learning as well. So we have some very shared foundational values, I would say. You decide to move on with a company like us and you've got some online knowledge, you've got this awesome subject area that you're an expert in, but you got to build the course, right? So what that first time kind of diving into custom training, getting to know some of the online tools, making sure that you're not losing, your voice or the essence in what you want to create. Can you tell some of our listeners who are considering building a course for the first time to expand their organization like you, what that was like for you to come into it? And, we'll talk about the couple courses that came out of it, but what was that first experience like to get online and on track with a company like us and start building something?
Yeah, I mean, it was a learning curve, especially I'm not young and youthful, so it's harder to learn new things or there's more of a barrier or a block to change. So I just had to push through. But the support with the training really made me see how manageable it is. To take on yourself and all of the tools and learning provided really, really helped. And this is a perfect example of the practical training.
Yeah.
As long as I'm learning by doing, it just gets easier and you're getting used to the platform and the system. And now I feel pretty good about moving into my next course.
Pretty jazzy in there now.
Yeah.
We definitely want to, with any professional services we offer at NeonTrain, we really do have a mantra that we do want to work our way out of a job. So we want to make sure that people are not only in building things in Brightspace that we use, which is the common thread that ties a lot of our podcasts together, to be able to do it, but to actually fully understand it, which is ironically the same concept that you've applied to grant writing of making sure that people don't just write a grant for the sake of writing a grant. They understand what they're doing, how they're doing it, so they can be sustainable going forward. So again, there's some really cool alignments when we think about how our businesses operate that I think are fundamental. And that's what has enabled you to move forward with this. And now you have two courses that came out of the training and the course building you did, funding essentials and grant essentials. And, I know that a big decision that lots of first timers have when they're wanting to build a course is they want to build the full course. They want to build the big course. And sometimes we have to help walk people back to decide, what's an intuitive chunk for maybe this is 2 courses, not 1 course. You decided on 2 courses out of some of the stuff you were working on. Was that an easy decision? Was it a harder decision? Did you fall on the decision? How did you decide to make 2 courses out of the materials that you originally brought to us?
The 2 courses are actually based on the end user.
Mm-hmm.
So iPlume Grant Essentials is for nonprofit and charitable organizations across Canada looking to apply to grants, government grants, foundational grants, corporate sponsorship.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas iPlume Funding Essentials is specifically focused on small businesses, women-owned, diverse-owned businesses looking to find funding, incentives, subsidies, things like that for their business. So if you think of a nonprofit applying for a grant for a community celebration, it's very different from a small business applying for an exporting grant, for example.
In online learning, we talk about that of organizations or anyone building training to understand their learner persona, right? So you've identified 2 very distinct learner personas. It doesn't mean that some of the content you build in one course can't be used in the same course or a different course, but you've targeted so that the outcomes are based to the people that are coming in so that they can actually get the objectives they need. And that's a really smart way. And it's really cool to see that come out of this, that you have those 2. As we talk about the course, we've mentioned Brightspace, and then you got to learn to build training and course material in Brightspace. That online experience where previous to Brightspace, you would have been sharing PDFs, doing emails back and forth with, people writing mock submissions or working with you. How has the Brightspace, some of the tools and some of that digitization of your material changed or shaped how you operate as a company?
I mean, in every way, because everyone learns or prefers to learn in different ways. So you have the online asynchronous Brightspace course. It's self-paced. In the end, I'm still able to provide that support before they submit the grant. So I've been starting to get requests for more in-person training. So instead of taking my synchronous training and turning it into an online course, I created an online course, and now I'm using that synchronously
as the basis.
Yeah.
And so you find that really good support and an anchor for what you're doing.
I mean, it was phenomenal because I just recently delivered a 2-day in-person intensive with a number of Black-led and Black-serving organizations in Nova Scotia through BBI and SBCCI. And I was able to provide them that service in a very short time with a short turnaround because of all the asynchronous work I had put in. So now what's happening is I'm getting requests for more in-person workshops or live virtual workshops on different topics. So I'm able to use that asynchronous course as a basis for and as a foundation for
as the presentation model.
Yeah,
which brings us back to higher education, which is how Brightspace and many online learning platforms have been used over years, which is tried and true, to have your source of truth material there, your curriculum, your content, and use that for presentation. So it's funny how we are progressing the worlds of being in corporate online learning, adult education, and sometimes we do revert back to traditional higher education methods. It's cool to see you finding that new part, which brings into the elements of, you talk about you wanted to have more hands-on experiences and practices in how you're executing this course. Many people do think that online learning, I'm going to be stuck in front of a computer screen. I'm going to have to listen to these voiceovers or read all these things, and I'll do a quiz at the end and I'm done. There's a lot of perception around online learning that that's what it is. But it sounds like you've really broken out of that mold, and that's not how you built this course. So what are some of those practical elements that you've brought into this?
Oh, there are so many pieces there. First, we start with sourcing, because people are beginning out, and they're like, where do you even find grants? So I already have a database of opportunities that I'm able to share with them. And I walk them through video and online tutorial, walk them through how to take those links and platforms and find further grants. And I've already built a list of curated opportunities that come up year after year so that they have something to start from and build from. So their first practical exercise is going through that list and finding the opportunities that fit for them, and then go from there.
And they submit that in on the system back to you
They
for
do.
vetting? Oh, wow. That's really cool. What's another example of activities that you've put in there, and how are you sounds like you're also kind of coaching and mentoring people through this process. What else are you doing in there to achieve that?
Well, actually, during that second module where they are looking for a grant, at the end of that, they're actually choosing a grant from that list to apply to. So the next module is determining your fit for that grant and walking through the guidelines and showing them exactly what to look for to determine whether or not they're a good fit. And then I have a funding fit checklist where they can actually
kind of self-evaluate?
Self-evaluate, and at the bottom it'll say go or no go. And a couple of the questions are about not going. So it doesn't matter if you score 100% on everything.
It could be like a showstopper.
If you're not eligible, then it's a no-go.
Yeah. So you're taking the theoretical knowledge that you want them to learn about various grants and opportunities, applying it using real life examples that, if successful, could be tangible outputs for them. And even the learning can sometimes come in that, sorry, this is not a grant for you. That's still a learning moment, so that when they go to the next one, they're just a little more practiced. They're a little more prepared to go through that checklist formula.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
And then ultimately, the rest of the modules are guiding them through that application.
To get through to the end, to getting it vetted and checked by Amanda.
We talk about supporting documents and what support they have to determine which supporting documents they need to submit with the grant. I go through budgets, work plans, logic models. They're all practical exercises. They learn and then they practice, and they're applying it to a live grant.
It sounds like the perfect blended mixture. When we talk about blended learning, this is really where this is a sweet spot that you've hidden and hit on. And when we look at that, you've gone through this evolution of having the aha moment. You hired a company, you partnered with us to want to do this. You've taken in some training. You've built courses, you've been executing them. We always like to leave listeners who maybe was the Amanda from a year and a half ago on the AI course when we were talking, and they're thinking, maybe I have something too. Maybe I have some unique knowledge that I could put into online learning to help make my company grow larger, to maybe help simplify my life and decrease some of the time that I have to deliver the consulting or training I do. What would be one or two tips that if you could, tell a new person who's coming in, or maybe tell Amanda from 2 years ago, that you would pass on for anyone thinking about getting into this online journey with their organization or with their particular kind of subject matter expertise?
I would say start with transformation, not content.
Okay.
A lot of people think, what do I know? But the better question is, what can you help someone achieve? What is the before and after? And this is actually very similar to my training when I talk about outcomes. A funder is looking for specific outcomes. That means, what major impact do they want to see? What is the before and after? So who do you want to make the biggest change for, and how can you do that? And then it becomes easier to create the content.
So really honing in on, again, identifying the learner, which we've talked about. So anyone out there listening, who is it you want to affect in that transformation? What is the transformation needed to get them from point A to point B? which is really technically education, because that's what education does. It brings them from point A to point B. We at NeonTrain often talk about being on the track of learning and the route of learning, of going from point A to point B on a known line. So you've created that known line to go from A to B, and B is a better place for that learner to achieve whatever it is that you can help affect in that change.
That's right.
That's the tip. As you think about where you're at now with a couple courses out there, they're very successful. They're in the NeonTrain store, which is an automated e-commerce platform that allows you to sell those courses online anywhere without having to manage all of the intricacies of a storefront. I think you probably have some thoughts for some more transformational changes for people out there. What's next, coming next for iPlume in the course development realm?
Well, I have been getting dozens and dozens of requests specifically for training on arts funding.
Okay.
Because that too
specified persona, right?
Is a very different area. While the structure is the same, the content and the focus and the learner persona is very, very different. So I'm actually working on that right now.
That's awesome. When you look forward and you say, okay, you're going to build your arts funding, you've got grant funding, you've got funding essentials. So we're covering nonprofits, we've got for-profits. Now we're into arts. Where else do you want to take it?
So then there's the U.S. market.
Okay, we're going south. All right, the U.S. And what are some early ideas of where and how you're going to impact that market with what you know? What are some of those early indicators?
Specifically for nonprofits, okay. I would always start there because I actually spent almost 19 years working in nonprofit leadership. That's where my grant writing skills and expertise came from being thrown in the deep end and being a director and executive director of nonprofit organizations and writing grants upon grants upon
Scraping
grants.
for every penny. Yep. That's awesome. The focus on nonprofits too, in NeonTrain world, we often do kind of lump them in also with associations, which I want to just make sure we give a shout out to, that when we talk about nonprofit, we do look at associations as well that sometimes don't always see themselves as nonprofit actually, which is kind of funny. But that's a really cool point to be wanting to move to the US. We're here to help you do that, as you know, which is exciting. Anything else, last thoughts for our listeners out there today?
Well, anyone interested in accessing our courses, we have special promo codes for those listening today.
Special promo codes. So that is awesome. You're going to offer that to our listeners on the podcast. Thank you so much. For the listeners out there, you'll be able to find those in the description of the podcast, or like after every podcast, we ask you for any feedback, comments, thoughts about the show to allaboard@neontrain.com. And you can also email us if you want to get in touch with Amanda and iPlume. If your organization, nonprofit, association, for-profit, or if you're down in the United States and you think she should go down there sooner, give us a line and we'll connect you. Amanda, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us today.
Thank you so much, Rob.
This is awesome.
Great being here.
Amazing. We'll talk to you soon.